Right now, the sequester is coming. The sequester is coming. Massive across-the-board spending cuts scheduled to go into effect at midnight. But D.C. is a ghost town. Members of Congress back home for the weekend, so safe to say today's last-ditch effort by the president and the Big Four from Congress did not work. We'll explain what happens now. And next, race in America. Where are we as a nation? Is affirmative action no longer necessary? How about the Voting Rights Act? Have we finally reached racial equality in 2013, or is there still a ways to go? And later, we'll be joined by an Israeli-Palestinian youth music group that's teaching tolerance through song. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I am Andrew Whitman, in tonight for Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday evening, March the 1st at 6 p.m. Well, you know how people talk about watching a slow-moving train wreck, one of those deals where you see the accident coming from miles away and yet no one does anything? They just sit there and watch and keep watching as the accident happens, seemingly in slow motion. Not sure why that metaphor is coming to mind, but happy Sequester Day, everybody. We've been talking about this and warning about the impact of the sequester since August of 2011 as Congress's penalty against itself if lawmakers couldn't come up with budget cuts as part of the debt limit fight. So for 19 months, these trains have been headed towards one another on the same track, and tonight at midnight, just 6 hours from now, we go over the edge and into the sequester, complete with its $85 billion in across-the-board spending cuts and resulting in what many economists say will be a fiscal slowdown that could slide us back into recession. And with the sequester now all but a done deal, we can already see the next train wreck coming just 3+ weeks away, when, whether the sequester is resolved or not, the federal budget is set to expire. That's March 27th. And without a new deal, the government, or at least large portions of it, will shut down. So what will the sequester cuts mean for you and for the towns and regions and states you call home? That's what lawmakers across the country and those here in our region were talking about today.
There's going to be pain. New Jersey has military installations. Picatinny, the Joint Super Task Force at McGuire. Just to mention a few. And that means individuals who will have less money to spend on behalf of their families and in their communities. So the pain will unfold.
It's going to affect kids who are waiting for a vaccine for a childhood illness. It's going to affect people who are waiting for that next great technological.
All right, little problem with our video there, but we heard from Congressman Steve Israel, we heard from Congressman Bill Pascrell, everybody warning about the different local impacts of the sequester. And if you're looking for Washington to help, get ready for whiplash. Lawmakers aren't even there at this point, so here come the cuts. And to make matters worse, it seems the war of words and ego battles in D.C. are getting worse before they get better. It was a last-ditch effort that nobody really put much faith in. After meeting with bipartisan congressional leaders, President Obama said today he can't force Congress to reach a deal to avoid those $85 billion in automatic spending cuts that'll go into effect at midnight.
I am not a dictator. I'm the president.
The White House has been ringing the alarm bells for weeks. Fewer federal meat inspectors, risks to national security, flight delays, kids dropped from their Head Start programs.
If the program wasn't around, we would be in trouble.
Even criminals set free due to lack of federal prosecutors. But today, the president acknowledged that not all of the cuts will be felt immediately, and they won't be felt by everyone.
This is not going to be a apocalypse, I think, as some people have said. It's just dumb.
The president says he's put forward a plan that tackles entitlement reform and achieves serious spending cuts, but it's his push on taxes that has Republicans fired up.
Let's make it clear that the president got his tax hikes on January 1st. This discussion about revenue, in my view, is over.
Even if the president and congressional leaders had been able to come up with an agreement, it really wouldn't have mattered. For days, there's been a sense of surrender in Washington. The halls of Congress empty today, lawmakers gone for the weekend. So there was no chance of a vote by midnight. The president, in his late morning press conference, did say he's holding out hope that Congress could come to some sort of deal in the next few weeks and stop the most drastic sequester cuts. But he also said it could happen in days, weeks, or even months. So it seems he may be ready for a long, drawn-out battle. Of course, voter reaction may well determine how or if any deals are worked out. And one thing is certain, voters don't like what they're hearing or seeing. New Gallup poll, 44% of voters gave negative descriptions of the sequester. Most common responses, bad, disaster, and this one's a new one for me in a poll, God help us. Just 11% described it positively, 24% were neutral, 22% no opinion. So voters don't like it. We'll have to wait and see who they blame for it. And for more, we are joined by Congressman Frank Pallone, Democrat from New Jersey's 6th District, Central Jersey. Congressman, thanks for a few minutes of your time. Can you give us some specific, tangible examples of the impact of the sequester in your district or in New Jersey, and whether these are things that people are going to be able to feel tomorrow or Monday or a week from Monday?
Well, in terms of furlough of government employees, they're all going to get notices today basically saying that they'll be furloughed within 30 days. So, for example, we're at Newark Airport right now. Once those furloughs take place in a month, you'll see longer lines for customs. You'll see major delays of planes. In terms of my district in particular, we're already hearing about across-the-board cuts in the Sandy Aid package. So for the people who are trying to get grants, homeowners or small businesses, those are going to be cut. For the towns that are getting money to redo their boardwalk or to fix their streets, that money will be cut. For the Army Corps projects to restore the beaches and the dunes, that will be cut. Anybody who's working for the government or receiving funding from the government is going to see a decrease in the money that's available. So there'll be a lot of jobs lost. And that'll have a major negative impact on the economy since people won't have money to spend. And what we should be doing with our budget is investing in the country and creating jobs rather than just making these mindless across-the-board cuts. What the Democrats have proposed is that we do have cuts, but they be in the programs that should be eliminated or cut back, not in things like airport security or hurricane aid. And also that there would be some closing of tax loopholes to pay for some of these initiatives. But right now, it's just across the board. So the good is cut with the bad, and the negative consequences are going to be significant.
So I wonder then, if the sequester is so bad, why not just cut a deal to get past the sequester, maybe not have a balanced approach to this go around and pick that up down the road? I mean, if the sequester is as bad as you and the president are saying it is, why this objection on how we make up those funds as opposed to just solving it on a short-term basis and come back to that later?
Well, look, the Tea Party branch of the Republican Party caused this sequester because they refused to raise the debt limit and wanted to set the country into default. So they said, if you don't want to default, then you have to do the sequester. Now that the sequester is upon us, they refuse to negotiate a more balanced approach. So, I mean, the blame rests squarely with those, Tea Party Republicans who are basically trying to influence the Republican leadership to let this go.
Congressman, you mentioned the Tea Party. Do you think that they're the folks that really need to be in the microscope here when dealing with these negotiations? Does Speaker Boehner have, to your mind, any power or leverage to actually work out a deal, or is he also being held hostage by the Tea Party?
Well, Speaker Boehner doesn't have a majority without the 70 or 80 Tea Party members of the Republican caucus. So, but what he has to do is basically join with the Democrats and say, look, I'm not going to worry about those 70 or 80 Tea Party people. I'll join with the Democrats and we'll come up with a balanced approach. He hasn't been willing to do that yet, but hopefully he will.
Finally, Congressman, Rand Paul, senator from Kentucky, called the sequester cuts just an appetizer of what's to come. He's, of course, referring to the March 27th budget deadline. Is there any reason to think, based on what we've seen with, first the fiscal cliff and now the sequester, that we're not looking at a government shutdown come the end of March?
Hopefully in the next few weeks, cooler heads prevail within the Republican Party, and we can come up with a balanced budget that grows the economy, creates jobs, and doesn't, lead to a recession, which is what I'm afraid the sequester might do.
You don't sound like the most hopeful man in the world as you say that, Congressman.
Well, I mean, I didn't think this day would come. Look, we should be in Washington right now voting. I don't want to be here. I would rather be at the Capitol trying to figure out an answer to this, and I'd take a plane right now out of Newark Airport down to Washington if I thought that we could have a vote. But, I just didn't think that this would happen. I didn't think this day would come.
All right, Congressman Frank Pallone, Democrat, New Jersey's 6th District, Central New Jersey. Congressman, thanks so much for the time.